why have you forsaken me?
Your word, Lord, your promise secure, and my soul will live always by your love. Lord, you open my heart, now your light will shine always by your word, Lord, your promise secure, now my soul will live always. Jesus, hold me into your heart, and Lord, my soul delights, and I know you hear my prayer. Take me deeper, Jesus, hold me into your heart, and Lord, my soul delights, and I know you hear my prayer. Take me deeper, take me The greatest love that anyone could ever know, it overcame the cross and grave to find my soul. Until I see you face to face, and grace amazing takes me home, I'll trust in you. Though I am, I live to see your kingdom come,
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start and sing this morning. So let's stand to our feet, shall we? And yeah, let's sing. And when people come in, they're going to hear us singing and celebrating the goodness of God. So let's stand to our feet.
We enter. Yeah.
To your gates with thanksgiving, into your courts with a shout of praise. We enter your gates with thanksgiving, into your courts. Shout of praise, for the Lord is good. His mercy lasts forever. His faithfulness stands the test of time. For the Lord is good. His mercy lasts forever. His faithfulness stands the test of time.
We lift our hands.
We lift our hands. Come on, let's lift our hands this morning.
In the sanctuary.
We lift them, oh God, to bless you, Lord,
and praise your name. To you, oh Lord. A shield around me, and you're our glory, and you lift our hands, for the Lord is good, His mercy lasts forever, His faithfulness stands the test of time. His faithfulness stands the test of time. It's good to give thanks to God our Maker and sing your praise to the Lord Most High. For you, O Lord, test of time. For the Lord is good, His mercy lasts forever, His faithfulness stands the test of time. Your love, your love, your love endures forever. Your joy, your joy, your joy, there's nothing better. Your peace, your peace, your peace is like a river you reign. Your love, your love, your love endures forever. Your joy, your joy, your joy, there's nothing better. Your peace, your peace, your peace is like a river you reign. Your love, your love, your love endures forever. Your joy, your joy, your joy, there's nothing better. Your peace, your peace, your peace is like a river you reign. For the Lord is good, His mercy test of time. For the Lord is good, His mercy lasts forever, His faithfulness stands the test of time, and His faithfulness stands the test of time.
Amen. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, God, this morning. Let's take our seats, shall we? Thank you. Okay, well, you'll all be pleased to know, because I know you've been missing him. Lucas will be back next Sunday. He's still in Africa. They are on the planes on the way home, and then they'll be arriving in England 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So just pray for them. 3 flights. It's a long kind of, journey, and they'll be with us next Sunday. So you'll be getting Lucas's texts again this week, which I know you've all been really missing. Okay, I wonder if, Rob, I'm going to throw you in the... Have you got a slide for the men's conference? Go on. I haven't planned this with him, so I'm just going to see, if he's worth his weight in gold. There we go. Now, LifeChurch men, all right, I want you to get this morning. There's a men's conference, all in. LifeChurch have bought 30 tickets. That means if you sign up, you get a free ticket. However, if you don't sign up and then you decide you want to go, you'll have to pay £7 on the door. So... logic thinking, sign up on the sheet at the back, book your free ticket that LifeChurch has paid for you to get to this conference. Remember, we have 3 congregations and only 30 tickets. All right, otherwise you've got to pay £7. So make sure at the back, gentlemen, sign up. If you're 15 and over, you're a man, sign up. Okay. When is it? It is, it's not on there. It's... Don't throw me in it now. You don't do this to Lucas. It is November the 8th. Okay, there we go. In Liverpool. So it's really close. All right, okay. It's going to be a good conference. So get that booked in. Okay, next Sunday is the deadline for Operation Christmas Child. Remember, Lucas said, can we see across all 3 congregations, can we get 100 boxes done? I know I've been seeing pictures on Instagram, people doing 6 boxes, 5 boxes, 4 boxes, 1 box. That is brilliant, all right? So see if you can find... Windsor's gave us 5 shoe boxes last week. So go and ask in the shoe shops and just say, look, you got any spare boxes? All right, and that'll be really good. Food bank. Please remember, each week, bring something to put into the food bank box at the back. Let's be a blessing. I think it's something like 52,000 people use food bank in Warrington alone. That's a lot of food that's needed. Okay, so let's remember just to bring some food and put them into the food bank boxes. Early essentials again. Early essentials, if they could do with our, anything for new mums and new babies, bring those at the back as well. And a final announcement. Pete Clark just wants to have a little moment about next Sunday. Pete?
So for anybody who doesn't... Sorry, hello. It's about a foot difference there. For anybody who doesn't know, we've got community meal tomorrow night, which is great. 5:45 in Westy Community Centre over in Latchford. If you want any information, if you don't know about that, come and have a chat with me. Secondly, we have LifeChurch late next week. That starts on the 5th of November, bonfire night. But hey, it's early, it's 5 till 6, that's all there is. So if you come along, there'll be a gospel message brought. If you have someone unsaved who doesn't know the Lord, it's a great opportunity to come. It's a really friendly, relaxed environment. Tom will tell you it's amazing, won't it, Tom? There you go. So Tom said it's amazing, so you need to bring people. We all have people in our lives, whether it's friends, neighbours, family members, someone like that needs to hear the good news. And as LifeChurch, we've facilitated that to happen. So please come and speak to me if you want to know a bit more information about it. There you go. There's leaflet to the back. Thanks.
Whew, God, he's tall, Ruth. How'd you cope? Right. I'm going to read from the scriptures. So if you've got your Bibles, you can turn with me. If you haven't, just listen. And I'm reading from Mark chapter 10, verse 46. Okay. Mark chapter 10, verse 46. And the story is Jesus is with his disciples and he's turned up at a town called Jericho. And I really feel this is for us this morning. It's for us this morning, this story. And it starts like this. Then they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, that is the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. And I think what's so interesting about that story is here in a crowd, there's a lot of people around Jesus. And here's this man not afraid to shout out, "Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you. Jesus, have mercy on me. I need you." And Jesus turned around to him, "Because you called out to me in faith, not knowing whether I would or not, I am going to heal you. You called out in faith, and I am giving you back your sight." And you know, this morning, you can feel like you're in a crowd. You can feel like, does Jesus even hit? So many people here, so many people who perhaps seem closer to Jesus, so many people who've been perhaps a Christian a lot longer than me. Why would Jesus hear my voice? And today, just like Jesus, he heard his cry in the crowd. He heard it. And I just want to say, you know what? When we come in a crowd before Jesus, Jesus hears every single one of your cries. He hears every single one of your shouts. And he's listening for you to shout out to him today. But you know what? We have to make that step. Bartimaeus, he couldn't just sit there quiet thinking, well, Jesus knows my heart. Of course Jesus knew his heart. But Bartimaeus had to step out in faith. And today, for some of you, I want to encourage you to step out in faith. Step out in the crowd this morning. And if there's ever opportunity to come forward for prayer, to stand at the side for prayer, to put your hand up to say, "I need prayer today," can I encourage you, make that step of faith. Because when we make that step, Jesus meets that step of faith every time. So the band are going to come. We're going to sing a couple more songs today. And if in you're thinking, "Yeah, Jesus, I need you today." All right, as we're singing these songs, just begin to reach out to God. Just begin to call out to God. And he will meet with you, okay? Because he said to Bartimaeus, he said, "Your faith has healed you." God says to us today, it's our faith. God wants to see our faith in action, and he meets with us. Amen.
Amen.
Let's stand to our feet, shall we?
There were walls between us, and by the cross you came and broke them down, broke them down. And there were chains around us, and by your grace we are no longer bound, no longer bound. You called me out of the grave, you called me into the light, you called my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Feel the darkness shaking, all the dead are coming back to life, back to life. Hear the song awaken, all creation singing we're alive. 'Cause 'cause you're alive. You call me out of the grave, you call me into the light. You call my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. And what a love we found, death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we're alive, 'cause you're alive. And what a love we found, death can't hold us down. We shout it out, 'cause we're alive, 'cause you're alive. And what a love we found, death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we're alive, 'cause you're alive. And what a love we found, death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we're alive, 'cause you're alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger. Your love awakens, awakens, awakens me. Amen, amen. You know, the Bible says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And do we really believe that this morning, that whatever we're going through, we can just lay at His feet? The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around that the Spirit of the Lord is here. Sing that again. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around that the Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflowing this place, fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. The atmosphere. The atmosphere is changing now. The Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around that the Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflowing this place, fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done here as in heaven. Spirit of God, pour fresh on us. Yes, Lord.
We need your presence.
Your kingdom come. Your kingdom come. Your will be done here as in heaven.
We need you, Lord. We need you. Spirit of God. Spirit of
A miracle can happen now,
God. We believe in Lord.
for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around that the Spirit of the Lord is here. Sing that again. A miracle can happen now.
We cry to you, oh God.
For the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around that the Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Just our voices. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us.
We want more of you, oh God. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. We call out to you, Lord. I call out to you, Jesus.
Sing a song to you, Jesus. We sing a new song to you. Oh, the adoration, Jesus, that you deserve. We lift your name on high this morning. We give it all to you. We magnify your name. We magnify your name. There is none like you, Jesus. And there is none like you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your mighty love. My comfort, shelter, tower of refuge and strength, let every breath, all that I am, never cease to worship you. Shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. To Amen.
Amen. Let's take our seats, shall we? Okay, it's 11 o'clock. Kids workers, are you ready? Children, are you ready? Right, kids, go and have an awesome time in Kids Church. And Adam's going to come bring the word today to us, but just before he does, we've got a video to play. So we'll just wait, just let the kids make their way out. And yeah, be ready. Adam's got a stonker for us this morning, guys. All right, he's ready to go. Preaching the word I'm talking about. Okay. All right, when you're ready, Rob.
My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from the words of my groaning? My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer, by night, but I find no rest. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the praise of Israel. In you our ancestors put their trust. They trusted and you delivered them. They cried to you and were saved. In you they trusted and were not disappointed. But I am a worm, not a human being. I am scorned by everyone, despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me feel secure on my mother's breast. From birth I was cast on you. From my mother's womb you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near. There is no one to help. From you comes the theme of my praise. In the great assembly, before those who fear you, I will fulfill my vows. The poor will eat and be satisfied. Those who seek the Lord will praise him. May your hearts live forever.
So what we're going to do is we're starting a kind of a new mini series really on we're going to be looking at the Psalms. So we're going to look at probably three different Psalms. Thanks, Rob. So this series will be called Songs to Help You Survive. So it's kind of just looking at the Psalms and the songs that are in there and how we can apply. Thanks, guys. And how we can apply them to our lives. Sorry, I'm caught on a hop a little bit. It's like 11 o'clock. That means we got an hour. I'm just saying, normally instruction is finished by 12, and that will be very possible. Maybe. So we're going to look at kind of Psalm 22. So that reading there was kind of Psalm 22. It's quite a long psalm. We're going to dig back into different bits and pieces as the day goes on. So don't worry, I am clocking the time. We'll be half an hour. I've noted that. So we're going to look at this Psalm 22, called "Why Have You Forsaken Me?" And as we're going to see, sometimes I think some of the Psalms are they are like a bit of a roller coaster. They're up and down, and they can be quite difficult to deal with from that perspective. Now, I used to work at a theme park. It wasn't a particularly good theme park, but I spent 4 summers of my life at the theme park, and that is a ride called the Tinkerboo Factory, and you knew you were not in for a good day if you were working in the Tinkerboo Factory, because that had a song which lasted 30 seconds and was on loop for the entire day. And so I don't remember it all, thank goodness, but it definitely had the line, "Sugar sweet, toffee's a treat, lots of lovely things to eat in the Tinkerboo Factory." And that just repeated and repeated and repeated, bad times. But actually, kind of worse than that was another ride I had to do, which was the Razzle Dazzle. And so the Razzle Dazzle, at least it was a bit more fun, but that Razzle Dazzle is literally just a ride that spins, and then it goes up at one end, and then down, and then up, and so it just spins and goes up and down. And any ride that just spins, that leads to one problem, and that is vomit. That is a big problem. So straight away, every day. I mean, in the middle of the day, I didn't mind because it gave me a break. It stopped me dealing with the public for a while. I'm doing all kinds of things wrong. This is why I use the tie mic like Britney Spears. And so, but no, it's fine. We'll have this weird, cracking that's all right. And so yeah, in the middle of the day, it was all right. I used to go, oh no, I get a 20-minute break while I go find a mop. But at the end of the day, that was a nightmare. Last thing you want, last ride of the day, you're thinking, this is a short ride, guys. Because last thing I want when everybody else is going home is to have to clean this up. And so I remember one summer just looking at it, and you could see straight away, the guys who were going to go. And I saw it in this man's eyes, and I was like, I am calling this in right now. If this ride lasts 30 seconds, I don't care. You're all going home, and I am not doing this. And so I just looked at him, I kept my eyes fixed, and I was like, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. I think I've got away with this. He was just looking down. I thought, well played, son. He's held it in. He's done me well. And so I was kind of letting them all go, and I was just locking up the ride and doing all my safety checks. And I realized he hadn't held it in at all. He hadn't been a good, loyal man. What he'd done is he'd looked down, and just in the corner right of his footwell of his seat, there was just a huge pool of vomit. And I was like, you terrible man. At least if it's out there, it's easier. I can just splash water on it. Now I've got to just like proper ferret around and get into there. And I know we didn't come here to hear about that, but sometimes you get a mic and it's just free counseling. And so this is my pain. And so anyway, so we are on the Psalms. And so the Psalms are like a roller coaster. I think some of them, I've kind of had a bit of a love-hate thing with this. Hate is probably not the right word, but Psalms is not my kind of go-to book in the Bible. It's not something that I go, oh, do you know what I'm going to read today? I'm going to read loads of Psalms, because some of them are kind of up and down and a little bit emotionally all over the place. And if you read a load in a row, you will see the same issues coming round. And I've kind of really kind of struggled with them and wrestled with them. And Psalm 22 is a little bit like this pattern. This kind of graph there is a little bit like how Psalm 22 goes. So the first couple of verses, I have a little laser point. Oh, it doesn't really work. And so I have the first couple of verses, David's in a real low, and then he kind of perks up a little bit and says, yeah, but God's all right. You're good. And he starts praising God, and then it kind of crashes down again. He says, I am a worm, which is a particularly low point. And then he kind of goes up again and says, yeah, but God, you know, I'm going to cry out to you. And then he hits this massive lull where people are surrounding him. And then eventually it ends with victory and it ends with praise. And the thing with kind of Psalms is that we kind of see in the Psalms I am clicking. There we go. So the thing with Psalms is, the reason I struggle with them at times is I prefer a story. I prefer to see action, kind of walk through what's happened. These people did this, they went there, this happened, and you can kind of get the heart and the message behind it. I much prefer kind of reading about the Gospels and seeing what Jesus did and what he said. But the thing is, with the Psalms, they're like a memoir. They're like, you kind of hear the heart cries of people, and you kind of get behind the story, and you kind of see the heart and the emotions and things behind it. And I've really kind of, this year, tried to kind of understand them a little bit more, and they kind of really helped kind of see not just the outward journey that people go on, but the kind of journey that kind of is inwards and in their heart. And there's a load of books about kind of in Samuel about David and what he did and where he went and what a great king he was. But then there's also the mistakes that he made. But the Psalms are like the other side of that coin, where we see not only the journey that he went on outwardly and what he did, but we see the wrestling that he had. We see the times of victory where he praises God. We see the times of failure. Sorry, Chris is taking a picture. Okay, we're done there. I told you not to do it at a serious moment, Chris, but he didn't. And so it is what it is. Normally they're quite blurry. I was ready for that. And so I am lost, Chris. So we see the other side of David's journey, and sort of songs give us that honesty. They give us that openness. And I'm not a massive kind of music man. I'd much rather kind of read a book or watch a movie, but there is something significant about songs. Like today we sang a song that's like, 30 years old, and some of us will remember singing that song and talking about God in loads of different places. And I have a song that it kind of always comes to my mind. We have this place where we go, me and my friends, a couple of times a year on a retreat, and just in the middle of the country, and it's a place that I've been going probably since I was maybe 14, 15, and we went as a youth group, and I remember on these weekends just really having that weekend away of really trying to focus on God and trying to get my head around life, and I remember there was this one song called like Thank You for Saving Me that I had on my Walkman, on my tape player, because I am an old man. And so I remember just sitting, there's a fence round the back, it's just a fence, but on the back there's a little kind of fence corner there, and I remember there was like a 14, 15-year-old guy just sitting on that fence, looking at the hills and praying, going, God, I don't understand life, but just knowing somehow that he's there with me, and knowing that he had a plan, and knowing that he was guiding me. And even now, when we go there twice a year, I just try and take 5 minutes every time we're there just to go and sit on that fence and just remember what God has done. And I think of the words of that song all the time as I sit there, just this song that tells us about grace and mercy, about this God who's not given up on me, about this God who will not let us go, about this God who puts his hope in unusual places. And songs have that power to do that with us. And so as we look at the Psalms, as we look at this kind of the passage here, they have that ability to get under the skin and to kind of speak into our lives and to kind of really hook onto us in ways that help us draw nearer to God and help us to connect with God in a different way. And we're going to look at 3 elements of this Psalm 22. And the first of these is just the honesty that David shows. And we're going to see in this psalm, it's really kind of fully, you hear the heart's cry of what he's at. You hear the honesty, you hear the emotions in it. And we know that kind of the better stories generally are the stories where we see the kind of rawness, where we see the genuine heart and the struggle and the battle that people go through, and they come through the other side. And they are the more meaningful stories in life, when people deal with stuff and it's difficult, but we see them progress and we see God pull them through. Those are the stories that matter. If I asked you about your favorite book or film, most of us would talk about kind of something where people have gone on a real journey and come through difficult things, because most of the time it's the meaningful stories that count. There would be some exceptions in the room who have poor taste in films. And so I'm just saying, somebody has cried at Beauty and the Beast twice, Callum. Twice. You are a grown man. I mean, and that is fair enough. I mean, I'm a crier, but I save my crying for when I preach. But Callum does it at Beauty and the Beast, and that's all right. He is who he is. But even worse than that, there's a guy in the room whose favourite chain of films is The Fast and the Furious. I mean, Isaac, come on. And so this is, forget reality. Forget kind of the honesty of life. Forget the raw journey. This film has a torpedo being fired from a nuclear submarine on ice as it's chasing some cars. So that is not a situation that most of us relate to. I realize, a couple of us have been through some weird stuff, but probably not most of us. And obviously, if you have a torpedo chasing you, I would get out of the car and go the other way. Not if you are The Rock. The Rock, they decides, I'm going to get out the car. I am effectively going to water ski on the ice alongside the car. And of course, I'm just going to push a torpedo, which weighs about 20 men. I checked. And so I'm just going to push it and then obviously blow up the bad guys. And it's reality. Of course, that is the life that most of us tend to lead. But it's not the life we see here in David. And we are going to get onto the verses, I promise. And so we're going to see that the kind of more that we let the kind of honesty and rawness of these psalms kind of come into our lives, they will help us to lead more meaningful lives as we stop, as we reflect, as we're honest with God, as we pour out our hearts to God. I believe that will help us lead more meaningful lives than just kind of going through routines and ticking boxes. And so if we look at the first few verses here that David talks about, and they're very raw, they're very difficult verses, and he starts with, my God, why? Why have you forsaken me? Like, why are you so far from me? Why are you far from my cries of anguish? I cry out day by day, but you don't answer. I cry out at night, and I find no rest. And then he kind of, as soon as he says these honest things, it's like kind of he realizes what he's saying. He's saying, yeah, I'm struggling, God. But then he knows who God is, and he says, but you are enthroned as a holy one. You are the one Israel praises. In you, ancestors put their trust. They trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. And so I think God is not afraid of our honesty. He's just not but there is a good way and a bad way to do honesty. I think sometimes it's important to be real with God. And some of us maybe struggle with that. We don't know how we do that. Maybe we find that hard in prayer or find that hard in writing. And the last thing we are here for as LifeChurch is to be some kind of weird religious facade where we just pretend everything's fine and we don't ask difficult questions and we just kind of pretend and we just think, I don't even know how to deal with that, so I'm just going to ignore it. That is not going to help deepen our faith. That is not going to help our understanding of God. David is in a bad place. He's in a tough place. And what he does is he says, God, I'm in a tough place. He said, I don't get where you are. And he knows that God is good. He knows that God is who he says he is. But it doesn't mean he doesn't face a tough situation. And he's honest enough to say, God, I don't see you. I don't know where you are. It doesn't mean I don't believe in you. It doesn't mean I'm not there. I remember reading a book from a guy who said he once was moaning to God. And he said, I don't believe in you. You don't exist. And he said, there's something weird about telling God that he doesn't exist, because by the fact you're telling him, you probably do believe in him. And he said, I realized that was a weird thing. He said, God, you don't exist. Well, who am I talking to? And then he realized that he thought God did exist, and he quit for about 3 seconds. And but he realized that kind of place of intimacy and honesty with God. And I was talking to Chris a month ago, and sometimes in modern days we miss that element of lament and just crying out to God and saying, God, things are tough. And as we talk about things being tough, I think we give God permission to speak into our lives. And some of you were here, I don't know, a month ago when I spoke last time. And this year I've written a lot. And as I've written a lot of stuff and been honest with God about just, this is tough, God. As soon as I put it down and make it like real on paper, it like gives him permission to speak hope and truth over those things. It doesn't immediately change things. It doesn't mean the next day the situation's different. But as soon as I'm honest about it, it's like life is breathed into those words. And what I realize is if I believe that life is meaningless and just bottle that up, what I'll do is I'll live a life that's pretty meaningless. I'll just be kind of thinking, there's no point. So what I do has no point. I just get through and so on. But as soon as I wrote down these words this year, like, God, I feel that life is pointless. As soon as I made that very real, I know life's not pointless. And it gave God permission to speak truth and really deal with some stuff and really pull things through in our heart. And so honesty with God is such a kind of key thing as we bring that in. It's something that I believe will help us deepen our faith. And like I said, I've done a lot of writing this year. That is the Christian photo of how you should journal and write with God, with a nice coffee made by a good barista in a hipster coffee shop. That is the Christian way. And if you don't do that, then there's something wrong with you. No, like that is, but like the amount I see that a lot. You know, you follow Christian. I just had a lovely time, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that is not how I've been writing this year. I have been writing in cars, outside solicitors' offices, at night, just sat, like, you write anywhere. It doesn't have to be this wonderful, calm, luxurious, nice space. Like, it just doesn't. Like, I'm currently working in London up and down at the moment, and I'm staying in Shoreditch, which those of you who know London, that's a proper hipster place for cool people. And me. And so I'm wandering around all these fashionable people going, all right, hello, I don't want to go in there or there or there or there because you will judge me for how I am. I mean, I went to Chelsea this week and sat in a hospitality box again twice in a week thinking, man, I feel like a criminal. Like, because if they know who I am, they will not welcome me. And so your journaling doesn't have to look like this nice, perfect, quiet kind of thing. It can be that you do it verbally. It can be that you kind of write stuff down. But I prefer writing because I just think, for me, it makes it more real. When I stick stuff down on paper, when I'm honest and put it down there, there's just something about, it just takes longer. And there's something about slowing down and being still and being steady, rather than just plowing through life and driving from place to place. I say a few things to God and I move on. There's something about just stopping, letting everything slow down and pouring out our hearts to him. And so, as well as seeing honesty, we see the trouble in this passage, and we're going to get into, there's loads of verses about the trouble that David faces. It's chaos, there's loads of difficult things, and we know that trouble is one of the it's one of the core things that we all face in life. Like, Jesus don't promise any of us an easy, perfect life. You know, there's a verse that Jesus says, like, in this world you will have trouble. And I realize that there is a second part of that verse. We'll come into it. Don't worry. I've deliberately left that out for now. Don't stone me. We're coming to that in my third point. But we kind of know that this life is not promised to be easy. We know it, okay? And so we don't like it when it happens. None of us enjoy difficulty and conflict and trouble. And we don't like it when we see it in stories. Like, again, if you kind of think of, I wouldn't say this is my favorite film, but just to illustrate the point about how we don't like trouble, there is a kids' film called Up. Man, I mean, I say kids' film loosely here. And so I remember watching Up, thinking, this might be all right. And those of you here last time will note that I dressed as a scout and looked a little bit too much like the little boy in Up. And so that costume will be burnt. And so like Up, and you think, it's a nice film. You look at that and you think, it's a man whose house is attached to balloons. Isn't this going to be a wonderful little family adventure? Okay. And then you see, look at the sweet old couple, and there's a little story of their life and how they've been in love together. And you think, this is going to be lovely. She's dead? What? And that is not a spoiler. That happens too early. And I'm like, what are you doing, Pixar? You should kill us all. And I'm just like, what is this? My mate watched it with his twin daughters, and he said they were in pieces within a few minutes. He had no clue that was coming. He was like, this is chaos. This is carnage. And so obviously we can be annoyed with Pixar, and rightly so. And we don't like the kind of trouble and the pain, But we know the good stories go through there. We know what it's like to go through difficulties. We know that the best stories, once they hit trouble, they overcome and they come through the other end. And we're going to see this in this Psalm 22, and we're going to see loads of stuff that's difficult. I'm just going to paraphrase it. So David starts by saying, I am a worm. I'm not even a man. I'm just despised. I'm scorned. Everyone's insulting me. They're mocking me. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let the Lord deliver him, since he delights in him. And then he goes and said, but God, I trust you. From birth I've known you. You have been there. Don't be far from me, because trouble is here and there's no one else to help. But then it goes even further down, and he's really struggling now. And he's saying, I'm surrounded by bulls and lions. I'm poured out like water. My heart has turned to wax. Like, he's in a bad old place. Like, this is a man who feels alone. This is a man who feels scared and trapped. And then he says, my mouth is dry. You lay me in the dust of death. And he's saying all this to God, and he's saying, I just feel like I have got nothing. I am dead. And dogs are surrounding me. Villains are around me. They're piercing my hands and feet. They're gloating over me. They divide up my clothes, and they cast lots for me. And so this guy is right at the bottom of our kind of pit. He's right at the bottom of our graph. This is as kind of low as it gets. And we know that the good stories, they involve this overcoming, and they involve this kind of conflict. And the whole story of Up is better because we've seen the guy go through that journey and we're with him. So when he goes on this adventure, we know the pain that he's been through, and it takes us on that journey with him. But when we're in that place ourselves, it's a different story. It just feels harder. It just feels so much tougher. And if I said to you and you had a friend going through a tough place, your words would be encouraging and telling them they could come through. But when we're in that tough place, somehow the rules, it feels like they don't apply to us. We get fixated with that verse in verse 8 which says, yeah, but I am a worm. And it says, I can encourage other people to get through this, but me, I'm not so sure about me. I'm not sure I can make it. I'm not sure I can get through this. I'm not sure it's going to be good enough for me. And I sat with a couple of friends in London this week, and they run this kind of volunteer ministry for homeless teenagers in London once a week. And they just kind of, they have a sleepover thing in the church, and they cook them dinner, they have breakfast together. And they were just telling me the kind of stories, and obviously how difficult that can be at times and how much challenge that could be. But as they were telling me the stories, and they were telling me about the kind of organization that goes into setting it up, you just knew these are the stories that matter. Like, both of these people work in like PR and marketing in big London businesses, get paid a lot of money. And the thing that made them come alive was dealing with homeless teenagers on the streets of London on a Thursday night. And that is crazy in some ways. Like, it makes no sense in the eyes of the world, because the things that should make them come alive are their good jobs with good money, where they can buy they can't buy a nicer house because they live in London, so they can't buy anything. And so but it's all right, they're not listening to this, so they won't see me rubbing that in. But like, the things that should make them happy are the things that this world would say, it's the money, it's the stuff. And they do like their jobs, but it's not what makes them come alive. What makes them come alive is this kind of chaotic night that they have, where it's difficult and it's troublesome, but they just find this meaning. And we don't want to live easy stories. Like, we do want easy stories in some way. When we're in a difficult place, of course, we long for the easy story. We long for the painless thing. I wrote in that book this year, there's something with me saying, look, God, I know I'm going to learn some stuff. I know that you are good enough to pull me through it. I know that maybe there'll be things in my character that come through that wouldn't have come through if I hadn't gone through this. But I said, but I don't want it. Like, I want an easier life. I want an easier story. And as soon as I wrote, I thought, I don't, but I definitely do in this moment. Like, when I'm in that lowest pit, I just want to bail. I want to get out of life. I want to say, I'm done with this. This is too hard. There must be easier ways. Okay, of course there are easier ways. But we don't want those easy lives. And I am convinced this year more than ever, we don't talk about the devil a lot in this place, and rightly so in a sense, we don't want to give him too much credit, but I am convinced that there is a devil who will just try and tell us there are easier stories, there are cheaper stories that you can live. And there are cheaper stories, and there are easier stories, and we don't want to live those stories. We want to live stories that matter. We want to know what it is to be people who see conflict and who trust in God to pull us through that conflict and overcome that conflict. And there's a great book that I've used it before, but this year particularly it's been really helpful that kind of walks me through that process of how to trust God and know that he designs your life and it's meaningful. And it's about a guy who kind of knew what it was to live a story, and he wrote this kind of movie about it, and it's just kind of really helped me really understand that God is in the process of change, even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, and we can't afford to get stuck. Back in my theme park, there was this one ride called the Boomerang. That's probably our biggest ride. I realise it's not that impressive, but it was just a theme park near Grimsby. Nothing was impressive. And so the whole point of this ride is that you go up this it pulls you backwards up this, and then it releases you, and you loop the loop, and then you loop 2 loops, and you go up the other long kind of chain there. And then you go down again backwards, and you repeat the process, and that is the ride. And so, which is fine. And so my mate was running, this guy called Jeff, and as the carts were being pulled backwards up this slope, he just said to the kids, right, when you come down, raise your hands. And so he did a big thing where he put his hands up, and he said, and scream. And so as they dropped it, he did this, raise your hands, but then he smacked the emergency stop button. And it was just the worst. It was hideous. So on that first loop there, the emergency stop kicked in like halfway up. Thankfully, it didn't stop upside down, but it locked the carriages to the track. And I don't know, but if you're at the front of that carriage halfway up, and you are almost vertical, just looking straight up, and they had to wait an hour for the fire brigade to come. Like, that is grim. And, like, Jeff did not operate that ride again. And so, like, imagine the chaos. But so often in these kind of tough times here, we just kind of think, I'm stuck. We kind of think, how do I get out of it? And it's just like we're locked in, and we can't get out of it, and we can't break it. And it's easier to just kind of think, well, this is, I guess, my life now. And so, which takes us to the final point. And the final point of the psalm is about overcoming them. If we look at a couple of verses, there's about 10 verses on this, but I'm just going to pick out a couple. Firstly, David cries out and says, do not be far from me. You're my strength. You're my deliverer. Deliver me from the sword, from the dogs. Will you rescue me? And then at the end it says, all the ends of the earth, they will remember and turn to the Lord. The families of the nations will bow before him, because dominion belongs to the Lord. And then right at the end, he says, all the rich will worship. They will kneel before him. And then the final bit really is that future generations will be told. They will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to a people unborn that he has done it. And so the thing with this kind of overcoming is it can just feel so foreign. It can feel like this unreachable goal, and we can believe in it for other stories, and we can believe in it for other people, and we see it in the movies that we watch and the stories that we read. And we know that is a process that can happen and will happen to other people. And the thing with this story is that the story that we see here is that David, this Psalm 22 is not David's story. It's not our story. You know, this is a story that Jesus takes ownership of. And in Matthew 27, when Jesus is on the cross, it says about 3 p.m, Jesus cries out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And I think as a kid, I guess I like grown up in church forever. I kind of always thought this was a moment where Jesus was like, oh man, where's God? And like, he was just separated from God. And actually, as I've kind of gone on, I see that actually in Psalm 22, I believe that Jesus is kind of singing this song and saying, right, this psalm, dark though it is in places, this would have been a well-known psalm. Like, it's like singing probably Amazing Grace to us these days. Everyone would have known it. And so as Jesus is starting this psalm here and saying, look, my God, why have you forsaken me? The people around would have known that psalm. It's like if we sang Amazing Grace and someone just kicked it out. We are not that kind of church where somebody just randomly starts a song and we all join in. Please don't do that. And so, like, don't you dare, Lowry. Don't you dare. You've had your moment. And so, I mean, we don't kick people out of church, but we can. And so if somebody did start that, we'd know where the song was going. If somebody sang the first line, we'd say, oh, I once was lost and now I'm found, was blind, but we'd know where it was going. And as Jesus says that phrase, I believe he's saying in Psalm 22, look, this psalm, I'm taking ownership of this psalm. This psalm is about me. The person where it says that is rejected and despised, he goes and he starts to sing this, because if we look at the kind of elements of this psalm, it says that I am mocked and I am despised. And on the cross, the people were mocking Jesus, saying, go on then, come down. Come down then if you think you can do it, if you're the Son of God. And it says he was the one that was despised. I am despised. All the people hate me. And Jesus was hung out there and he was spat on and he was whipped and he was abused. And it tells us that in the Psalm 22 that they cast lots for my clothing. And none of this ever happened to David. There's no evidence that any of this happens to David at all. And so Jesus takes ownership of this and says, like as he's singing on the cross, we see people kind of cast in lots for his clothing and take his clothing apart and take it for them. And it tells us at the end that there is one that the generations will sing of for years to come because of what he has done, and that he has done it. And so Jesus takes ownership of this song, and Jesus is declaring this song, which at times it seems so dark. He's actually saying this is a victory song. This is not a victory song because of David's goodness. It's not a victory song because we're quite good and we might make it. This is a victory song because Jesus on that cross finishes with saying it is finished. Like he has done it. He has overcome. And so as we kind of carry the name Christian, as we kind of walk around with that, the honor of that name, what we will see is that we have this privilege because of what Jesus did, because on that cross, he knew, I am the one who would be despised. I am the one that they will hate. I am the one that will be abandoned, but I know what I'm doing it for. And I know that people will tell this story for generations and generations because of what I have done, because that cross will not hold me, that grave will not keep me down, because I know that I am going to come and I'm going to beat death and I am going to have my people and they will be called my people forever. And in that verse that I deliberately skipped over before, it said in John 16 where Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble. And I deliberately obviously stopped there because he says, but take heart. I have overcome the world. And on the cross we see that as Jesus is there saying like, it is finished. As he sings there and says, look, I'm going to sing this song of victory over the people so that people will know that I am the one who is to come, that I am the one who has brought victory. We know that in this Jesus, we know a man who overcomes the world. And I don't know what situations people face. I don't know. I think for some of us, we might not overcome some of the difficulties sometimes we see. I look at the disciples and kind of Paul, and a lot of them were martyred. A lot of them maybe died in prison or whatever. And we stand on the shoulders of a lot of martyrs who've given their life for that faith. So I can't tell you that everything this side of heaven is just going to work out nice and easy and we're going to get away from it and then we'll just have a nice easy run in a home and we'll die old, etc. That's not the story I see in the Bible. It's not the followers of Jesus. It didn't happen. But what I do see is that one day we will get to heaven and there's going to be a wedding and there's going to be a feast, and somehow me and you, we are going to get invited. And we are going to get invited because of the victory story of this man on the cross. We are going to get invited because this man has declared that it is finished, and that if we trust in him, if we follow him, if we hand over our lives to him, then nothing else will matter. And there's this great verse in Revelation 21. It's some of my favorite verses, isn't it? It just says, I had a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling places with his people, and he will dwell with them, that they will be his people, and God will be with them, and he will be their God, and he will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there'll be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old thing have passed away. And I remember early in this year thinking, like, one day when I see God, I am going to say to him, do you know what, God, 2017 was unfair. 2017 was just too much. It was too hard. And I know the more I think about it, the more I'm not going to say that, because when I see God face to face in all of his glory and I see the lines on his face, I'm not going to be bothered by 2017. It's not going to matter, because ultimately when I see who he is, I'm going to realize this is the one that made us. This is the one that kind of restores us. This is the one that makes all things new. And the whole point of my existence was to be reconciled to him. And you know what? Some of the nonsense that we face here, it's not going to matter. And we don't just sell heaven as this fairy tale that maybe it'll all be good in the end because we can get to heaven. Heaven is this reality. I believe when we cross over, it was the whole point of being close to God and reconciled with God. And so that one day when we overcome, we can be with him. And so, at the time, that's 30. And so just to kind of finish us off, I like a little prop thing. And I wish I could have bought classier props, but it is hard. And so I was trying to think of like just something. I really felt the kind of thing that God was saying is about singing a new song. And Andy's even mentioned that today in the worship, where he kind of was saying, some of us need to sing a new song to God. And that was the kind of thing that was in my heart. And I thought, just something to take away that reminds us of that. And some of us maybe need a reminder that we're part of maybe a bigger story, that our story is not just us, but there is a bigger story that we are part of, with a whole congregation of people all over this world, all of whom sing about this guy Jesus, who was this overcomer who went to the cross and that will welcome us home. And some of us maybe need to kind of know what it is because we're facing difficulties and we need that new story. Or some of us have been on a journey and maybe it's easy to quit, or we want to quit, or maybe we have quit and we know we need to get back on our feet. Or some of us maybe are kind of singing our stories alone. It feels like that we're trying to be following Jesus, but it's hard and there's no one with us, or we're in our workplace and we're alone and it's difficult. And so what I would just encourage you, the band that I think are going to come up, I'm assuming, because it's 11:30, and so I'm assuming they're coming back up. And so, we have at the front toy harmonicas. I know that they're not the best, but it is what it is. And so, just something about, just as a recognition of that God has got a new song for us, that he's not finished with us, that the kind of song that Jesus sang on the cross, that overcoming song, that can be our story, That does not have to be that we end in the trouble. We do not have to get stuck in the valley. But we are people who know what it is to live a different way. And so as the band play, and Sarah does whatever she wants to do, I would just encourage you, as we sing, I've even got 2 tables. That's what Isaac and Dan were doing before. So I would just encourage you. Sarah talked earlier about responding, that as kind of God does things, just to do something and make an effort. And so we've deliberately not given them out and put these on chairs to make you do something. Because if you think, do you know what? Maybe, God, I just need something fresh of you. I know it's just a plastic thing. I know it's nothing. But just that act of response, that act of kind of saying, all right, God, I need a new song. Will you just help me? Whether that's in honesty or whatever. Would you just, we just invite you to come forward and grab one of these and maybe pray or just sit in your chair and worship. Because we just believe that God has got that for us. So I'm just going to pray and then hand to the band. So God, I just thank you that you sang, that you have done it all, that we can be overcomers, not because of how good we are, but because of Jesus, because of what you did on that cross. Lord, I thank you that one day we will see you as you are, Lord, and we will be reconciled and everything will make sense and we will be in the fullness of your presence. But God, in this broken world, would you help us to sing new songs? Would you help us to live stories that matter and sing songs that maybe we don't see in our situations, but we see through your eyes? Would you help us that, we pray? Amen.
As we sing this song, as Adam said, just reflect on the words, and when you're ready, just come down and just come and get the harmonica. And if as you're doing that, if you want to spend a bit of time down here, then do. All right, this is a time for yourself, and a time for you with God. And maybe you need to have an honest conversation with God this morning. Maybe as you come and get the harmonica, maybe it's that step of faith for you. Say, God, I can't handle this, but I'm going to put my trust in you. And as you come and get that harmonica, it's your step of faith this morning. So take your time, sing with these words with us, listen to the words, and then just respond, church. We've got plenty of time this morning, and we're not going to rush it. And there'll be people down here, if you just want to stay standing down here, there'll be people who'll come and they'll just come and minister to you. Or it might just be, actually, you just want to talk to God yourself. So I'll just encourage you this morning. You can stay seated, you can stand,